You're busy. You were busy yesterday. You'll be busy tomorrow. Your calendar is full, your inbox is behind, and somewhere in the back of your mind there is a list of things you haven't gotten to that makes you feel slightly guilty every time you think about it. You move fast. You respond quickly. You stay on top of things because falling behind feels worse than staying busy. That feeling is not an accident. Busyness is not a byproduct of your workload. In most organizations, it is a management tool, and it has been pointed at you with more precision than you have ever been told. My name is Zara. This is Zara versus the workplace, and today we are going to examine exactly how busyness gets manufactured, what it prevents you from doing, and who benefits from keeping you in permanent motion. Picture someone capable, organized, genuinely good at their job. 3 years in. The work keeps expanding, not through formal role changes, not through promotions, but through accumulation. A new process gets added here. A recurring meeting gets added there. A project ends, but the reporting requirement it created stays. Another initiative launches, and this person gets looped in because they're reliable. Every addition has a reason. Every reason is legitimate. But the cumulative effect is a calendar so full that thinking actual, uninterrupted strategic thinking has become something that happens on the commute, if it happens at all. This person has not complained. Complaining about being busy feels like complaining about being needed. A year passes. Nothing in their career has moved. No new skills developed. No lateral visibility built. No conversations initiated about what comes next. There simply was no time. The question they finally ask themselves is quiet and unsettling. When did I stop having time to think about my own future? Here is the diagnosis. Right around the time the organization realized that a busy employee is a contained one. The employee who has no capacity to think is the employee who has no capacity to leave. You're not busy because there's too much work. You're busy because a full calendar is the most effective employee management tool ever invented. It eliminates thinking, dissolves leverage, and keeps you too occupied with everyone else's priorities to build any of your own. Today, we break down exactly how it works and what to do about it before another year disappears. There are 4 mechanisms through which organizations use busyness as a control instrument. None of them require intent to function. The system produces the outcome regardless of whether anyone designed it consciously. Mechanism 1. The cognitive capture. When a person is operating at or near full cognitive capacity responding, executing, attending, delivering, they have almost no bandwidth left for the category of thinking that would change their situation. Strategic thinking, career evaluation, skill development, external market awareness, all of it requires cognitive space that constant busyness systematically eliminates. The mechanism is not malicious. It is simply efficient for the organization. A person using 100% of their capacity on current tasks is producing at maximum output. The fact that this same condition prevents them from evaluating whether the output is worth what they are trading for, it is a side effect the organization has no incentive to correct. A full calendar is the most effective thinking prevention system ever invented. Mechanism 2. The complaint suppression effect. Busyness functions as an emotional buffer. When someone is overwhelmed with work, the cognitive and emotional space required to recognize, articulate, and escalate dissatisfaction gets crowded out. There is no time to be unhappy, not in any sustained, actionable way. Frustration surfaces and gets immediately submerged by the next task, the next deadline, the next meeting. Organizations benefit from this directly. The employee who might, with adequate reflection time, recognize that their compensation is below market, that their role has plateaued, or that a pattern of mistreatment has been building, that same employee, when kept consistently overloaded, never develops those recognitions into positions. The dissatisfaction exists. It simply never organizes itself into a demand. Busyness does not eliminate discontent. It keeps discontent too fragmented to act on. Mechanism 3. The leverage elimination. Negotiating leverage for salary, for role scope, for working conditions requires information, preparation, and timing. All 3 require time to develop. An employee with no discretionary time cannot research market rates, build an external network, or evaluate alternatives, and an employee with no alternatives has no leverage. This is the most structurally significant function of manufactured busyness. It is not just that the busy employee doesn't think about leaving, it is that the conditions of their busyness have systematically dismantled the tools they would need to negotiate staying on better terms or departing on their own schedule. The organization does not need to prevent you from leaving. It only needs to ensure you never have the time to build the position from which leaving becomes a real option. Keeping you too busy to build options is indistinguishable from keeping you trapped. Mechanism 4. The identity fusion. Over time, sustained busyness produces a specific psychological consequence. The person begins to equate their busyness with their value. Being needed feels like being important. A full calendar feels like evidence of relevance. Saying yes to every request feels like contribution. And the prospect of a lighter workload begins to feel, paradoxically, like a threat to their standing rather than relief. This is the most insidious mechanism because it is self-reinforcing. The organization no longer needs to manufacture the busyness externally. The employee begins to generate it themselves, filling any available space because empty space has come to feel like diminishment. They have internalized the control. When you start to feel guilty for having capacity, the organization has completed its work. Here is what 3 years of manufactured busyness produces. The skills you meant to develop are still on a list somewhere. The external relationships you intended to build never got the follow-up. The conversations about your next role were perpetually deferred to a quieter period that never arrived. The market awareness you needed to negotiate effectively is 18 months out of date. And here is the particular cruelty of this timeline. The further you fall behind on your own development, the harder it becomes to catch up, because catching up requires the same resource the busyness has been depleting: time, cognitive space, energy that has been fully allocated to someone else's priorities since before you noticed the pattern. You did not neglect your future. You were given no time in which to attend to it, but the outcome is functionally identical. The years passed. The position did not change. The gap between where you are and where you could have been grew quietly, in the margins of a calendar that was never yours. The most productive employee in the organization is often the one who has been most effectively stopped. Here is the lens that changes the operating position. Stop treating your calendar as a reflection of your workload. It is a reflection of your priorities, and if you did not set those priorities consciously, someone else set them for you. Every recurring meeting you attend without evaluating its continued necessity, every task you absorb without asking whether it belongs to your role, every request you fulfill, because declining feels professionally risky. Each of these is a transfer of your time from your future to someone else's present. The organization will always have more requests than you have capacity. That is a structural constant. The question is not how to eliminate the requests. The question is what percentage of your available capacity you retain for the work that builds your position rather than just maintaining everyone else's. Protecting your time is not a productivity strategy. It is a career survival strategy. 3 moves, executable this week before anything else changes. Move 1. Audit your recurring commitments. List every meeting and recurring task in your calendar. For each one, ask a single question: if this disappeared tomorrow, what would actually break? Not what would feel different. What would break? The items where the answer is nothing are candidates for removal or reduction. Start with 1. The act of removing it will tell you more about the organization's actual priorities than any conversation will. Move 2. Block 2 hours per week as non-negotiable protected time. Label it as focus work, preparation, or deep work, anything that sounds legitimate in your organization's culture. Use that time exclusively for activities that build your external position: market research, skill development, professional relationship maintenance. 2 hours is small enough to defend. Over a year, it is 100 hours of deliberate investment in your own trajectory. Move 3. Practice the cost transfer question before accepting new work. When something gets added to your plate, ask out loud or in writing, "What would you like me to deprioritize to make room for this?" You are not refusing. You are making the trade-off visible. Most managers, when forced to name what gets dropped, will recalibrate the urgency of the new request. Those who don't have just told you something important about how they see your time. Your capacity is finite. The organization's demands are not. The boundary between them is yours to draw. You have been busy for years, and somewhere in that busyness, certain things did not happen. conversations you didn't have time to prepare for, skills you didn't have time to build, decisions about your own life that kept getting deferred to a quieter season that never came. That is not a personal failing. It is the designed outcome of a system that benefits from your motion and suffers from your stillness. A system that learned, very early, that a person in constant motion has no capacity to evaluate the terms of their own situation. The antidote is not rest, it is reclamation, reclaiming enough cognitive space, enough calendar margin, enough unallocated time to think about your own future as clearly as you think about everyone else's deliverables. Busyness is not the price of contribution. It is the cost of not protecting your own time from people who will always need more of it. If you watched this and recognized your own calendar, drop the word busy in the comments, just that word. I want to know how many people are watching this in a window between back-to-back meetings right now. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the things most workplaces will never tell you. I'm Zara, and this is Zara versus the Workplace.